Hi everyone, this is Beck from the Twisting Twine and welcome to this video on how to crochet the mesh stitch in 4 chain. When you're doing the 4 chain version, you need to have your chain stitches in multiples of 3 plus 1. So for example, a chain of 24 plus 1 equals 25 chain stitches for your foundation. Okay, we have our chain stitches. The first step is to insert the hook through the 3rd chain from the hook, like so. Then yarn over and drag that yarn through that chain stitch, and then again through that loop that was already on your hook. Chain 4, 3, 4. Now skip 2 chains, 1, 2, and insert the hook through the 3rd chain, and then another slip stitch. Drag the yarn through that chain and then through that existing loop on your hook. Then chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, skip 2, 1, 2, and insert the hook into the 3rd chain, yarn over and drag that yarn through for another slip stitch. And then you have these 2 arch-like loops. So now practice your mesh stitch in the 4 chain. Feel free to pause the video and restart when you're ready to start the 2nd row. Okay, so we're just doing our last chain 4. We skip our 2 chains and we insert our hook through that very last chain of the row, like so. Do our last slip stitch, and then this is what your first row of the mesh stitch in the 4 chain should look like. So to begin our 2nd row, we're going to chain 4. And then we're going to do a slip stitch right through that first loop. So you don't need to go through the chain stitches, you just go right around it, like so. Do your slip stitch, and then you get this funny looking little beginner loop at the start of the row. And chain 4, 3, 4, and then the same thing. We're going to do a slip stitch through that next loop, like so, and we continue. Chain 4 and slip stitch into the next loop. We continue this way until we get to the end of the row. This is what it starts to look like. You start to get a little bit of like the beginnings of a diamond pattern with the mesh. So chain 4, right through, slip stitch. So feel free to pause the video now, finish off that 2nd row, and restart when you get to the end of your 2nd row. So once you get to the end, you're going to insert your hook through the odd looking little loop that we had from our very first row, just like this, with a slip stitch through. And this is what 2 rows of the mesh stitch will look like. So each row from here on out is exactly the same as the 2nd row that you've just done. Chain 4, slip stitch into the next loop, chain 4, slip stitch, and so on. The great thing about the mesh stitch is that it has this sort of self-sustaining straight edge, so unless you're deliberately trying to expand your project, you'll keep to the right number of mesh stitch in each row fairly easily. So this is what a few rows of the mesh stitch will look like, and you can see this straight edge that I was just talking about on both sides there. So this is what your mesh stitch will look like after a few rows. It's got great stretch in it, this stitch, so it's really good for projects that need to be able to hold their shape or need to have some stretch to them, like bags and things like that. Thank you for joining me in learning how to mesh stitch in the 4-chain version. Check out the other crochet basic tutorials on this channel. For free crochet patterns and tutorials, head over to the Twisting Twine blog, and happy crocheting!